So today, we begin what is probably one of my favorite final areas in a Fire Emblem game. I mean, it looks pretty cool on the outside, but this scene right here just makes it look incredibly foreboding. The description's also pretty cool as well. Actually, to be honest, if I had any disappointment about this, it would be the fact that this bridge isn't a chapter. We don't get to play this, it's not a map. Which is too bad. But anyway, yeah, we also have a whole lot of dragons who are waking up. They're all sleepy, and they're going to destroy humanity if given the chance, so we're gonna go stop that real quick. Oh, and by the way, one thing I should note is, if you're playing the original Mystery of the Emblem, this is all one chapter. I'll elaborate more on that later. And now the final hat! It's the best one! Actually, wait, we also had the... do I like the mask or the hat more? To be fair, if you kept the mask, you could actually combine that with this incredibly good hat. I don't know what the male version of this hat is, though. I forgot to check. Anyway, how is everyone? Alright, 30 experience. Actually, not that useful for Rise because he's one of my highest leveled characters, considering he's my only healer. 29 experience, not useful here. Good for you. That's really not a good boost, though. And, geez, what's with all the bows lying around here? Anyway, who do we have to talk to today? I guess nobody, but God. That hat. You do actually have a conversation with Ymir, but I figured it'd be more fitting for the next chapter, so I'm putting it off. Anyone you get at this point in the game is either very quick to gain support points or whatever they're called, and or they just have one conversation. Ymir's one of the characters with one conversation, as is Michalis. Right, so here we're actually going to be showing off the characters. I figured I should be showing off their stats in the first place. Plus, I'd also like to show off the difference after the upgrade items, the stat boosters. You honestly really shouldn't wait so long to use them, especially if you have a team in mind. I've been trying to get better at hoarding in games, or I guess not hoarding, doing that less, but like, with Fire Emblem it's still kinda difficult. I still hesitate to use stat boosters. I mean, like, what if I don't need them, though? Sometimes you just get surprised by your stat upgrades throughout the game. Like, for example, I have had better boards before. Like, usually my board isn't this slow, but he's pretty slow here. You know, sometimes you just have really good characters, and you didn't need the stat boosters all along, but if you used them earlier, they would have been a waste. My inventory is also very disorganized. Clearly I didn't clean up before putting all of the, before using all the items, which makes sense. I mean, why would I? Okay, so, A, I cleaned up my inventory, B, I used the stat boosters, and C, at this point I was clearly determined to just use rapiers. To be fair, you don't really need iron swords. Marth's gonna get a pretty good sword soon, and, well, should be obvious what it is. Considering we have most of the named special weapons from Arcania already, save one. And considering I'm pretty sure it's already been mentioned before, think it's obvious what sword we'll be getting. Goddamn Ryan. Strength and skill, that's all he needs. It's also too bad that Cecil caps out on strength of 25, which is a good cap for this game, but still, I'd like it higher. Cecil's already good at destroying everything. Make that better. All that stuff's maxed out. 20 strength is okay. Honestly, her strength's a lot better than it is at my other file. It's just really bad there for some reason. I don't think I really gave McCallus much. Not much of a point, he starts good. 19 speed is still gonna mean he's fairly slow, but he's fairly strong. Same with Minerva. And, oh, Ogmo is the last one. Alright. So, this chapter. This one's a fun one. Honestly, the most difficult part is probably this beginning bit. Though we've got some tough units up the center. We've also got a lot of space in this map, but it looks fairly straightforward. We've also got these guys to the side, keep them in mind because you need to take a bit of a detour to get to them. So, this part's actually fairly interesting. We have another Monarchette here, and you might be familiar with her from Shadow Dragon, because she is the final returning character. Obviously, of course, being she was Shadow Dragon only, you don't get this advantage in the original Mystery of the Emblem. Godo's also got an important bit of advice that doesn't really apply to me, because I'm on normal mode, and I'm equipped to handle dragons. I'm ready for them. Even if they are mage dragons. Okay, yeah, and they're saying it here. It's the Falchion. We don't get it this chapter because Garneth isn't here, but we'll be getting it soon enough. So, this new ally is Nagi, the reincarnation of Naga, and the interesting thing is, Marth does not recognize her. They made all of the other Gaiden chapters canon since Marth recognizes the characters that appear there. Here, however, he does not recognize Nagi, probably due to the fact that the chapter that unlocks her in Shadow Dragon is fairly obscure. That's the one where you have to kill off Tiki and lose Falchion. So, let's talk about Nagi real quick. So, Nagi here is the last good character you get in the game. So, of course, like most other endgame characters, she's got almost no time to grow, which is unfortunate because she caps out at level 30 instead of 20. So she's only halfway to capping out, but there's no way you're getting her that many levels before the end. It's also a shame because not only is she capable of using the Divine Stone, which is already a powerful weapon that will make her admittedly slightly lower base stats a lot better, her growth rates are really good. Honestly, her biggest problem is pretty much her strength, defense, and resistance could be better, but all of those problems are really alleviated by the Divine Stone she wields. This probably isn't true for higher difficulties, of course, but her strength doesn't matter because she's effective against most of the enemies you're going to encounter anyway. Her defense doesn't really matter because she's going to get a defense boost, and her very low resistance doesn't matter because 10's really good anyway, and it's only going to get better. So basically, Nagi, she's pretty good. As a crutch character, she is absolutely worth using if you need her. I mean, heck, even if you're still using Tiki, there are so many dragons here that you might want to consider using Nagi as well as Tiki. So yes, indeed, the Altar Spire is completely non-canon. Marth gets the sense that he's met her before, but if he doesn't recognize her, then they didn't meet. But of course, in an alternate reality, they did. Now, I don't really think I have anything else to talk about in regards to Nagi, though. Anything I I would have brought up in the last game. Like the fact that some people think that she's the reincarnation of Tiki and not Naga, but no. No, that doesn't make much sense. Anyway, though, a while back I believe I talked about another source of Divine Stone, and well, here's Nagi. She also starts with a Divine Stone. It's incredibly useful, and she's actually a really solid character for the final area, because there's a lot of dragons, and she's got a weapon that lets her kill dragons fairly easily. But if you're not too fond of Nagi and you've been power leveling Tiki, then honestly just give that Divine Stone to Tiki and just go wild with the Divine Stone she has already. You're gonna need it well, you don't need it, but it helps. Anyway though, next off, Mage Dragons. Mage Dragons are really tough. Other than Earth Dragons, they are probably the best dragons in terms of sheer stats, and true to their name of course, they have a high resistance, meaning mages are bad for them. Which kinda sucks, because for other dragons, mages are incredibly useful. Though, to be fair, it's probably not too much of a difference in higher modes than it is in normal mode, because in normal mode, mages normally wipe the floor with dragons because dragons can't counter, whereas in higher modes, of course, dragons can counter, meaning a mage's squishiness is going to be a lot more of a detriment. So, anyway, yeah, point is, don't use mages against mage dragons, use physical fighters. Katarina's pretty much just here for supports. Anyway, I don't actually have to use, or I don't really have to be close to the chest to use the Thief Staff. Honestly, I always forget how to use that thing, but Rise can pretty much just use the Thief Staff from anywhere, provided nobody's standing on top of the chest. Like, it might have a range, however, what I discovered in the other file when I had to use it for the Gra chapter is its range is really good. You don't have to be right next to it. In fact, if you're on top of it, it just straight up won't work. I remember that. I've made that mistake before. Alright, next off, I wanted to talk about... get Julian out of there. Anyway, yes, I wanted to talk about how this chapter is one chapter in the original Mystery of the Emblem. There are 3 final chapters in this one, and they're all separated out so you can save in between them. And of course, you can just refresh gear, whatever it is you normally do between chapters. In the original, there were 3 maps, yes, but you had to do them all in a row. It was all just apparently under the umbrella of the final chapter. And let me tell ya, there's a number of reasons that sucks a lot, but I would also like to mention that there is a point in which you need correct characters in order to solve something. And if you don't have those correct characters, well, I mean, you can beat the game, but things turn out a little worse. And believe me, that's not on the first map. It's on the last one. So, basically, in the original, if you don't know you need to bring certain characters to the end, guess what? You gotta restart or face the consequences. So yeah, you'd have to replay 2 maps. On one hand, the game does drop some hints as to who you might need to bring. I'll elaborate more on that later, of course, but, they've been relatively prevalent characters story-wise, and you might be able to figure out what you'd need specific characters for, but, I wouldn't blame anyone for not realizing that's the case. And I just think it's really bad design. Like, as it stands, I'm gonna try to stop talking about this because we're not going to get to it for a few chapters, but I think it's just bad design in the first place. If you had to restart 2 chapters because you made a small mistake, that sucks a lot. Oh yeah, and of course, if you have not been using those characters, they're normally dead weight for the final chapter. They're even more dead weight if you have to bring them along for longer. It's real bad. Anyway, though, Goto mentioned earlier that if this battle drags on for too long, you may find yourself surrounded. So, of course, he's hinting towards the fact that this chapter has a lot of reinforcements, and that only gets worse on Lunatic, in which there are 2 extra spawn points. And in addition, apparently stuff also spawns earlier on Lunatic, so that's actually a pretty big threat. Like, here, like I said, I can deal with dragons easily. It's not a huge deal. But in Lunatic, you kind of have to deal with them due to the fact that they arrive earlier, but they're also tougher enemies in general, so yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world, I could imagine. And this is definitely one of the more difficult chapters, or at least it was on my first time through. It's still kinda tough, but I don't have too much of a problem with it. And even on my first time playing, I had difficulty with it just because I didn't know how the battle was going to go. But in the long run, it wasn't too terrible. Actually, wait. I feel like I had to leave the chapter early, but no, I don't think I did. I don't remember specifically how I played this game the first time around. At least for the most part. A few chapters I remember distinctly, but this isn't one of them. Anyway, though, talked about all that stuff, I don't really have too much else to talk about in regards to the chapter itself. Be prepared to deal with a lot of dragons, that's more or less it. I guess I could go into personal stories. I haven't really had much of a chance to talk about certain things for the rest of the playthrough just because it's never come up, but admittedly, FE12 is actually kind of the game that helped me realize I was trans. That's probably, like, simultaneously the dorkiest thing I've ever said, but also the most predictable, if we're to be completely honest. Like, yeah, I'm sure everyone gets it. I like this dumb series way too much. What else is new? Here's the thing. I still think that locking the classes for certain genders is dumb and bad. Like, don't do that. Anyone should be able to play any class, even witch class, honestly. It's kind of bullshit that Fates locked witches to be female only. Ballistician was even worse, though. A, because I didn't really have any male characters I'd want to be ballisticians, and B, why? I get they wanted to have a counterpart to the witch, but first off, witches are far better. Second off, women can drive tanks, it's fine. There's no reason for that one. Anyway, though, wow, I'm way off track. But yeah, despite that, I still think it's dumb. But the fact that I had to play as a female character to use a Myrmidon actually allowed me to use a female character. I mean, obviously I could before, but, you know, I'd always default to male because, you know, I had to. It's the law. It's written in crayon in that book over there, see? So before FE12, I never really liked character creators because, I'll be honest, I would design the most boring boys. Like, these were some fucking box art ass boys. It just looked like a default character without being the default character. Like, I'm pretty sure for Dragon Age, I just made, like, the default character for, FF14. I think I've seen, like, advertisements that use that, like, short brown-haired dude. That kind of design. Really frickin' boring. But, you know, Myrmidons were my favorite class, and they're still fairly high up there. I also like Pegasus Knights and Mages, they're also good, but I wanted to play as a Myrmidon, so I was like, alright, I guess I'll just play as a girl now, but, you know, I was A-okay with it, and suddenly, I actually really liked a character I designed, which was new to me. I hadn't experienced that before, and now, honestly, like, now that I've realized that, I actually like character designers a lot more, and I think I can design slightly better male characters as well. They're less boring boys. It's not my preference, but I can. And, you know, it's not to say that, you know, if you like playing female characters, that automatically makes you trans. That's not true. You can play whatever you want. I'm just saying, I like arts a lot, and to do a 180 from I do not like this form of expression to actually wait, no, I definitely like this form of expression is, you know, it's kind of important. Sorry, that guy got a crit with 2 damage. I was just terrified there for a moment. It was just a horrifying experience seeing that crit activate. Was that like the first enemy crit we've seen in the game? I mean, to be fair, if any other enemy crits activated, like, I'd probably restart because it would probably lead to my death, but if that's the first one, then that's hilarious. Anyway, though, God, I keep getting sidetracked, but yeah, I don't really know how to describe that. Like, I like artistic type stuff in general, because, like, you know, I like writing. That's the thing I like doing. I'm not always the best with artistic stuff. Like, I can do photography, I cannot draw for the life of me, is the thing. But, you know, in general, art, really cool and good. And, you know, that's why it's so strange to me now that I didn't like character creators before. Because, you know, since I can't draw, having a program that allows me to do that instead is one of my favorite things, honestly. Like, honestly, I don't really do self-inserts that often. Fire Emblem's really one of the only games I do that, but even still, the characters I design and, you know, this sort of thing, I feel like I can put a lot more detail into, you know, in my own head rather than just creating them from the ether and tossing them into the game and just saying, yep, they're there, I don't care about them. You know, now it's characters that I feel closer to or am able to detail more or, you know, or just personally more important to me, that sort of thing. Anyway, despite me nervously talking about that, we're still not at the end of this chapter. Just imagine how long this would take if I hadn't sped it up. God, I kind of feel sorry for the non-com version. That one's, gonna be kinda long. I mean, I already know the length, I just haven't memorized it. I've edited it, but God, do I look like the person who would memorize video runtimes? No, I wouldn't. Anyway, though, yeah, I guess while we're on the topic of queer stuff, I would like to bring up the fact that the Shadow Dragon playthrough happened when I was, like, kinda closeted about being bisexual. Like, it was the point at which I'd realized, wait a minute, sometimes I think men are actually attractive, but wait, I can't admit that to the world, and then I stopped giving a shit. Probably around the same time I came out as trans as well. I'm pretty sure that wasn't long after the Shadow Dragon LP, but anyway, the reason I bring that up is because there is clear evidence that I was nervous about that, in that I referred to Camus and McCallus as cool idiots as opposed to hot idiots, which, first off, is patently untrue. They are not cool at all. And second off, that was me clearly having come up with the phrase hot idiots in my head, but then being like, oh no, I can't say that out loud in an LP. What will people oh wait, I don't give a shit. Flash forward like 2-3 months, I don't give a fuck actually. It was fairly obvious to begin with, if we're being completely honest. But now, it's like, I care even less. Why would I? First off, I'm far too zealous for anyone to harass me about it. Second off, even if they did, I don't give a shit. Whatever. I will still be far too zealous for it to be, like, a terrifying threat, so fine, whatever, I don't care. Cash up front, jeez. Okay, that's pretty much all I had to say about that, and we still haven't ended the chapter, goddamn. I don't hate this chapter, but, this is one of those cases where talking about a thing actually makes it a little less good. Because it goes on for a little too long. I mean, part of the reason is because I did have to separate two characters out so that they could take care of the Fortify users, because I hate those guys, they're jerks. But, yeah, it's a little bit of a trek, even for characters with high movements. They have to go out of their way to do that. That was a good level on Katarina, though. Pointing out levels. I like making note of levels, but I usually end up not doing that because I have something to talk about. And usually that's just far more important in the long run. But nope, now I'm just at the point where it's like, we're still killing dragons and we haven't gotten to the end. I guess at this point I'll make notes. You should have a pretty even divide of characters on both sides of the field so that they can both tackle some of those doors. Try to have a thief and someone with a door key, or somebody with an unlock staff. Whatever opens both doors on the same turn, because that's going to help a lot. Oh dear, I seem to have killed the waveform. Whoops. I guess while we're at it, sorry about the delay. I was kind of sick, and then I got lazy about editing the, whichever one was, chapter 21. I forget which video that is, but yeah. I got sick, and then I really didn't feel like editing that. I hadn't even done the bios at the time, actually, and I didn't want to do those, but yeah. I've been ill. And unfortunately, I still have the worst cough. So, here we are. I'm doing horrible things to Audacity with my terrible, awful garbage cough. So, yeah, I guess at this point we can unlock the doors, and oh boy, that's a lot of enemies. This is why you want to be able to tackle both sides, because otherwise, you just have enemies coming from the other end of the field to attack you, and you don't want that. Try to just finish everyone off from, the sides, and then pincer everyone else, that sort of thing. Honestly, if you survive the rest of the onslaught, you should be fine here. Yeah, but this is why I probably did wait until the end of the reinforcements on my first playthrough, because, like, I feel having to deal with this and reinforcements would actually be more difficult than just dealing with reinforcements, so no matter what difficulty you're on, you're probably going to ignore Goto's advice and try to escape and just kill everything. Which is a shame, because it is always actually kind of neat when one of the Fire Emblem games effectively tries to make you leave a map early, and goddammit, Iris. Like, I will say this about Thracia. Not the biggest Thracia fan, but they do try to make it feel like you are on the run. Because there are a few chapters in which enemy and reinforcements actually get really nasty and you're going to want to escape. Usually they achieve that sort of thing by just, like, having the map be a limited number of turns and having a lot of reinforcements, because if you only have so many turns, then you're probably not going to sweat having to kill everything. You're just going to need to survive. Of course, on subsequent playthroughs, you then ignore that. So in certain chapters, like the ones near the end game, where it's a timed chapter with a lot of enemies, you're just going to try to bum rush the boss. I know I've done that, even when it's an incredibly stupid idea, cough cough sacred stones. 'Cause hoo boy, I won't name the chapter, but there is one in which there's fog of war and a lot of reinforcements, which you don't realize until you go all the way to where the reinforcements are, because they're surrounding the boss. And it's just one of those you came to the wrong neighborhood motherfucker moments. You're just like, okay, I could probably just kick the boss square in the butt and he'll leave, and then, nope. No, you will in fact probably die here, Erica. Anyway, though, very short closing to this chapter, because of course before, there wasn't really much plot, you just went from map to map. In fact, this cutscene of me taking off the best hat is probably one of the longest ones we're going to have until the final map. There are unfortunately no new chapter descriptions because there weren't any in the original. To be fair though, with how ominous the one in this chapter was, I don't think you really need many others.